How do you delicious people? I'm here to talk about an Amazon original series called Upload. So, when I went through this, I kind of went through the whole season, and I think now I'm going to go through episode to episode instead of doing it all in one shot, like I tried to do before. So, going into this, we ultimately had a different approach to go into this season this time around. Because I think the first time around, like, I did it through Amazon. I think this time around I adjusted and did something different. Just because easily, like, when you, like, kind of share, uh, like, a Prime thing, a Prime membership and whatever, it's easy to just, like, go, like, okay, well, hey, let's just kind of, uh, Price is Right, roll the big wheel today and see what Amazon has. So when going into this, yeah, now I just went through just differently because it was just easier because less apps to have at some point. So uh, upload this one this time around. There were there was like an interesting thing to me where I thought like, man, like this show is really fun. It's really good. I really enjoyed the first episode, and ultimately there's a big mystery like kind of lurking of why Robbie Amell's character Nathaniel is seemingly like, why is someone going out of their way to to take this guy's uh afterlife off the table, so to speak. Seemingly erasing some of Robbie Amell's memories and ultimately leaving him seemingly dead to be pushed off into some virtual world, to where ultimately he at some point could easily be monitored, could be controlled, and who knows what else. So, going into this episode was like, I was like, man, I can't wait to get to other episodes because this is kind of like it kind of shows you in the very first episode that Nathan had taken a lot of things for granted. Like, basically, he had a beautiful woman, like, sitting next to him, and, like, basically, he wasn't really sure about where their relationship was really going to go. But when you kind of go through these episodes a little bit more, you'll realize that, like, it seems like both of them were just together because it was easy, or just because it was like, well, yeah, it's just like this is really working out. This girl is who plays Ingrid is ultimately very rich, and ultimately Nathan seemingly is not when you get through other episodes. And it was just easy. It was just easy for Nathan to be with Ingrid. And when looking at it, the more and more that Nathan realizes that he doesn't honestly really have he doesn't really have a life anymore within his quasi virtual afterlife, which is called Upload. Basically, he is starting to like realize how there was a lot of things that he probably did take for granted, which I think is kind of interesting. Like, basically something as simple as like a goofy looking part that got messed up on his hair was driving him crazy. How basically he like didn't quite understand why they had to eat, or why they had to seemingly do anything, because everything was just like basically to the outside world, probably within this world, just a click away. So we have, for most of the point, but not all of the point, a girl named Nora that is, and I'm talking about this first very cryptically, and then we'll go into like the real bulk of a spoiler of this episode. So Nora ultimately goes into here as a person that is living in the real world, kind of grounding Nathan. And so ultimately, Nora is trying very much so to help Nathan adjust, realizing how many numerous people that she has uploaded onto this virtual world. Basically, she can understand anything that Nathan is going through, or any kind of withdrawals, or any kind of just moments where he is just not like, it's hard to cope at first because reasonably, like, he is calling the outside world, and the outside world has almost, like, easily and quickly, with the exclusion of Ingrid, almost forgotten about him. Sadly enough. Or they just can't, like, they can't get to him because basically they are, especially with Ingrid giving him like the highest kind of afterlife. No one's gonna go out of their way to try to reach this person, or there might be people along the way that are seemingly going to try to see what life is in this virtual world. So I think that's all that we have very much to really focus on within this first episode. Reasonably, it's a very, for most of the point, simplistic episode until we get to some weird stuff, like when Nathan tries to go to the bathroom at some point, because in the virtual world the pee is really weird. So we'll eventually get into that. So we will go into this episode and just kind of revel in the either odd or just interesting journeys that this tends to go into. So let's go into that spoiler time, talk about this first episode. I know probably I didn't go into much of like real cryptic like senses of American God's Day, but like, I don't know, people could be interested in that, or people could not be interested, however it interests you. So, Upload Season 1, Episode 1. So, we have Nathan that seems to be having fun with one of his family members, Nevea, heaven spelled backwards. Funny enough. Ultimately, Robbie's dancing with her and stuff like that, but we have Ingrid who is spending seemingly a holiday with Nathan's family, and she's really having a tough time adjusting because she is very much living at a higher form of life than Nathan is. And I guess like Nathan was just lucky that that Ingrid wasn't smart enough, I guess, to find anybody else. I guess would be the reason why they are together, I guess. So basically, Nathan and Nevea are dancing it out, and Ingrid eventually like lays next to Nathan and like basically like puts his shoulder on her and touches him. Is like, we're done here, right? Like, that's how Ingrid is just like she's like, yeah, like I tried this and no. So reasonably, Nathan and Ingrid are eventually having a seemingly bedroom business like moment in their car. Um, right after this, and in the very beginning of this episode, we also have Robbie Mel's character like overly using his car to try to speed through traffic to try to get to his home for the holidays. Ultimately, when a policewoman via some drone like pulls him over, he's like, "Well, like my car malfunctioned." Because ultimately, it's supposedly this is a futuristic world where cars seemingly drive themselves. That's why you can basically have an entire seemingly bed in someone's car and like fall asleep in your car and no one would know the wiser because basically it's just like the lavish luxury of a car that you the car drives itself 100%, but you'll find out there's going to be eventually a problem with that. So maybe, who knows. So we go into this episode and or we go into the cop pulling him over. Basically, Robbie with his good looks kind of gets out of this whole getting a ticket or anything like that. Or basically he blames his car, but really it was him that was using a remote control to just kind of like speed through all the cars, and then he gets pulled over. So, but he kind of talks the woman of not giving him a ticket, but the car eventually, Knight Rider wise, corrects him and is like, "Oh, well, do you want me to call your girlfriend Ingrid and let her know that you're going to be dating this woman in the future?" And Nathan's like, "No, don't do that." So weirdly enough, all of the phone calls that are being done through this future are done by doing this. Like you put your hand and then you do this, and that calls someone, which is weird. Like it's kind of like like the hands are kind of broken at some point, but like that's how they call everybody in this show. Um, I thought that was interesting. So you have like a like where between these two fingers are, you have this like screen that pops up that like shows someone like as if you were to Skype them or whatever. Um, but yeah, interestingly enough, I thought that was kind of cool about this show. Like man, they at some points are using like pretty good like special effects and stuff like that to do these talks, these conversations, and stuff like that. And I like how it eventually turns out afterwards. So we have it to where ultimately Nathan ends up needing to go after his seemingly car bedroom business. He pulls into this grocery store, buys some things. Eventually, at some point, when Ingrid is out of the car, we have Nathan that is driving home, and eventually his car starts to malfunction, and Nathan is trying to stop the car. He's trying to um, do manual override. He's doing any number of things, and the car won't listen, or the car says incorrect stuff. Um, like calling Manuel or something like that. Like, or you don't know anyone named Manuel. So what ends up happening is Nathan's car ends up crashing into some, I think, trash dumpster or trash, not trash dumpster, trash like the God, what is it called? you have people that go and get trash, the vehicle that they drive that in, that thing. He crashes head on into that. And so, reasonably, we have Nathan that is now on a stretcher going through this hospital, and bizarrely, Ingrid is there on his side. I'm like, wow, that was quick. So, Nathan eventually has to make a choice because his lung seemingly is going to collapse and he's probably going to die soon. So he has to either choose between dying the natural way to go to a seemingly metaphorical heaven, if that's ultimately what he believes in, or he can go and be uploaded into seemingly this virtual world and have his head completely, seemingly digitally chopped off, which that's what happens next. Because ultimately Ingrid is like, but I want our love to be forever. And are you not gonna like stand to have our love last forever? And like Nathan's like, well, like forever or eternity is a really long time. And he's like, and I think like Nathan is like very like consistently unsure about Ingrid, especially considering he's dying right now. And so reasonably people are just like telling him it's like, well, reasonably like being uploaded is going to be a whole lot better than dying naturally and this and that, and like basically they're forcing his hand to be uploaded, and basically Ingrid is going to be his benefactor with her seemingly health insurance to be able to upload Nathan. So Nathan just says, well, okay, I will be uploaded, sure. Signs away his right to die naturally and goes to be uploaded. So what happens is he's put in like a hospital uh, schmuck or whatever, like a hospital dress, and he is just told to sit on a throne, and ultimately you have a nurse of sorts like bringing in this big huge like table or big huge like trolley like thing or like wagon kind of like thing that eventually is going to be used for something. So Nathan eventually is waiting to be uploaded, and eventually Ingrid is watching him, and eventually his mother also walks in to see him get uploaded. And what happens is basically Nathan's entire head gets like phased out, and his body comes flying out of this chair, flopping like a sack of potatoes. And then like the doctor or the nurse that took that like wagonish like thing is now gonna pull that body out, and you have Ingrid and Nathan's mother just going, ah, that looks horrible. So Nathan is eventually uploaded, and Nora is very confused because there are some memories in Nathan's life that seem to have been redacted, that seem to be like weirdly manipulated with to where you can't see what it is. And so Nora has to file a separate report on this guy with question marks on it. So we ultimately have Nathan who is waking up, because ultimately we have Nora who is shown very firstly in this episode showing us her process, showing us how she brings people to be uploaded. And so she basically Nora walks Nathan through that same process. Basically telling him to count, telling him to breathe, and everything like that. And so Nathan eventually goes into this upload world. Nora, like, does a little adjustment to his hair to where his hair sticks out because she thinks that he's had too good of a life or that he's too perfect, so you might as well just mess with his hair and kind of make him like earn being in this world because all of this isn't controlled by him. So Nathan eventually goes into this world, and the first thing that he tries to do is to try to see, like, through a small fridge if he could eat anything, but it seems that everything comes with a price. And so, reasonably, you have Nathan eventually calling his angel because that's what Nora is, and a person at some points in time appears, and it's a gentleman. So reasonably, like, Nathan has to learn that these angels that are going to be helping Nathan out figure out this upload world, because you have to call Nora an angel because that's their policies. Basically, like, Nathan is like, this is all coming like really difficult for him. So Nathan eventually has to call Ingrid to get the password to try to get food. And ultimately, the entire time, Ingrid is talking to him. Like, it seems like she is just like, well, now that you're dead, like, yeah, you're my little plaything, and now I can say whatever I want to you because, like, you're here, you're stuck here, and, like, basically, like, now I can tell you I love you. And ultimately Nathan is like, well, hey, like, I wasn't, like, sure that we were, like, ready to say that yet. And she's like, well, what are you gonna get scared away now? You're gonna get cold feet within this relationship? Like, Ingrid is kind of like twisting the knife on, like, Nathan, who is just kind of like, oh my god, like, am I gonna be able to eat? Am I gonna be able what am I gonna be able to do within the time that's here? So we ultimately have Luke, a character that is going to be best friends with Nathan. And Luke very much is a seemingly hacker of this upworld, or this upload world. Basically, he tries to figure out some glitches in the system, or he very much tries to figure out if there are ways to get a better part of life within this upload world. Uh, Ultimately, we'll also find out Luke is a former military person, which I thought was like, all right, cool, this is great. So Luke will really just be the person within this one episode just to make Nathan aware of some glitch in the system to where Luke can get free bread. So Nathan is going to get free bread because he is also going to be taking advantage of Luke's glitch, weirdly enough. So, because ultimately he is asking, like, his neighbors, or he's asking some people around, like, hey, like, where do I go to get food, or where do I go to, like, do this and that, and, like, and what should I do here? And so reasonably, like, for a bulk of this, Nathan is just kind of like, I don't know what to do. Most of the time he's realizing that he can, like, adjust things, or he can, like, possibly go on hikes, which he learns from his neighbors, or he ultimately kind of goes around and sees what everyone else is doing. It seems like there's one person that seems to be like critiquing the upload world. Like he's basically like a food or a movie critic where he's like, okay, hey, look at this lake, 3 stars. Like, you can kind of tell from the background, like, this guy's really glitching out when trying to go into this pool. So, yeah, there's some backsides to trying to go into this pool or this lake or this whatever. So, or not pool, but like it's a river or a pond or something. So, ultimately, Nathan is asking this guy, like, hey, what does he do? And consistently, we have this guy who is like judging all of this stuff and uploaded and like trying to review all of it. And he's like, yeah, hey man, yeah, I've been making a killing off of this um, while reviewing all this stuff. So, like he recommended Nathan some stuff here and there to do, but so excuse me. Eventually, this reviewer, tells Nathan about this seemingly one place, or there seems to be, I think either Luke or this reviewer tells Nathan about, like, man, are you gonna freak out, man? Are you freaking out, Nathan? Like, dude, don't go into that one, like, this big, huge, like, there's this like big huge like ever extending like elevator-ish like thing that if you go into here, like basically you will end up completely being deleted from being uploaded. Like basically it's this like this white and or like completely like it's this white, it's like basically being, it looks like from this apparatus like being abducted by an alien, but like that's what they do in upload. There's no actual spaceship, it's just one really long white light that ultimately if you go into it you'll be sucked into it and you'll be deleted forever. So Nathan is almost finding this thing to be very much appealing. And so he is almost at towards the end of this episode walking to it because he's realizing that there's certain people that are glitching out. He's like realizing how like much there seemed to be advertising for him to either spend money or for him to just like, man, this is kind of like a resort, like come on, like have fun, like and he's just like dude, no. Like I'm just like, immediately he is like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, where he's pulled into this world and he is starting to freak out. And like in The Matrix, eventually, one of the guys will yell out that Keanu Reeves is gonna pop, and then he barfs and then passes out. So like Nathan is almost escalating to that moment of glitches and seeing that this world for him isn't really real, and so basically, and he can't like at any moment be with the woman that he wants to be with, um because ultimately Ingrid is asking him to, or ultimately Nathan is asking Ingrid like, hey, well, when is the next time we're gonna meet, and this and that, and like Ingrid eventually will have to like schedule that. So it's not just something as easy as like, oh, I'm 5 minutes away, here I am, and so there's an adjustment to that. So because basically Nathan goes into every aspect about uploads, even to the point of like bedroom business when he's laying on a slab or laying on a stretcher in like before he goes to be uploaded. So recently we have Nora, who is also going through a conundrum because her father, who is Dave, is very, very sick. Ultimately, he is to the point of seemingly at some point like they're telling us that eventually he is at some point going to be seemingly going to die at some point soon. So Nora is talking to her father and mentioning like, well, hey, like there is there's some great things that Upload is doing right now. There's some good upgrades that ultimately like it looks amazing and it's like this is awesome. And Dave is like, well yeah, but your mother like she's waiting for me. She's waiting for me in heaven. Like how could I be uploaded and and like prevent from ever seeing your mother again? And like that's an interesting conundrum of this show. That's like the one real thing that I really like about it is that like the tossing and turning of like of what people believe in and maybe a safer route which could be uploading. But when we go through more of these episodes, we're going to find out that there are several different kinds of people that were uploaded, kind of people that are at certain rungs of being uploaded, which I found fascinating. Like some of the people that only have X amount of dollars or X amount of memory. So there's sometimes where eventually some uploads can only exist during some portions of the day because that's all they can do. So, going into this, Nathan is going to very much like pull the ripcord, so to speak. Basically, go in and like go to that UFO esh like light to just go, well, like this wasn't working out like I thought I would, so I'm just gonna go and just like just just finally do it the natural way, end it all. And because Nathan, considering he's had everything like handed to him for his entire life, now Nora is realizing, she's like, oh my god, like I quasi made this harder for Nathan, and like I didn't realize it because Nathan basically says it's like, man, like I have this problem with my hair, and like I have like so many issues and so many problems, as if like somebody was purposely trying to make this time that I had been here like hell. And I'm like, Nathan, this seems to be like in the mass of one day. In the mass of one day, he's saying this, and so to me, he is at some point like taking a shower, and it seems like that seems to be working for him, and it seems that he has already like made friends within this world with Luke, and ultimately everybody is nice in this world. Funny enough, there was one time where Nathan had went into an elevator and he had been met with a woman that was seemingly like had black clothes on and white hair and had like a complete head to toe like looked a certain way, and she had mentioned, yeah, like uh I wanted to take this photo and make this look like it was me from 1961 or something like that, when they only had like black and white like cameras. And so that's what the reason why this girl looks the way she does. I was like, wow, that's actually really interesting, but like kind of the makeup, you could kind of easily like, especially in the face, but like who knows how long this person was like in this makeup for, and like there is probably no way to convincingly 100% like look like you have to imagine at some point that the budget was at some point lower for this thing. But anyways, it's not like I was going to see a CGI person that was black and white fitting into this world. It is what it is. Uh, like something was gonna probably stick out somewhere or another, but mood. It's a mood point. I thought it was just kind of funny or interesting that you kind of go all out to like if a person is older, make them look younger, and like funny enough, like she had mentioned that like she doesn't even realize if that's actually a photo of her that they used, and it might have actually been her sister's instead. Funny enough, so we have Nathan who is trudging to the seemingly long elongated white light, and so recently Dora or Nora eventually goes into intercepting Nathan and trying to talk him down from 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 leaving. Basically, Nathan mentions to Nora that it seems that Nora is his only friend here, and that he doesn't even know what her name is because ultimately he asked her what her name is earlier, and Nora said, "Well, it's my policy not to tell you. I'm just here to just kind of walk you through this world. If you have any questions, just shout me out and I will be right there to help you." So Nathan eventually is like, "Yeah, I don't have any friends here," even though he already made one. And I don't know who anyone is, and I'm so scared, and blue, blue. So Nora eventually finally has to, like, supposedly break her policy, but no one else will know about this. So Nora says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you my name, Nora. I'm going to tell you like intimate stuff about my office people, and like I'm going to tell you a little thing about my world." And so Nathan is very happy to officially make a friend here, and that is ultimately talking him off this virtual ledge, let's just say. So basically, that is the real like cusping of this episode, and I think that's all that I really need to say at the end of the day. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.